because we are people, we're not products.
Hey loves, my name is Jay and I say screw hustle culture, and you can too. And I'm saying this as a former workaholic. You see, I've been hustling since day one. As a child, I was in violin, choir, football, wrestling, dance. At school, I was in all the accelerated programs. I was in the highest reading class. Shout out to Group Blue. Later on in high school, I attended an independent school whose main focus was to prepare you for college, which meant overwhelming students with work and high expectations, all to prepare us for the real world. In college, I relied on highly competitive full scholarships, which meant that I had to maintain a high GPA and be heavily involved in school. I was president of the Honor Society. I was vice president of Phi Theta Kappa, which is an honors Greek organization, all while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. My senior year of college, I had 5 jobs. I was a game day ambassador for the Baltimore Ravens. I was a marketing intern. I was on my school's audio and visual tech team. I was a student researcher for virtual reality, and I was an overnight security guard. I was the most hardworking, the most productive, and the most sick I've ever been in my life. I was having panic attacks. I was depressed all the time. I wasn't sleeping well. I found out that I had high blood pressure at the age of 24. By the time I graduated, I was able to begin my career and quit those 5 jobs. So I went from 5 jobs to 1, which meant that I had a lot of free time. All this extra free time made me feel anxious and guilty for taking those times to relax, to take care of myself. I didn't see my value outside of work. I knew I had to make a change and that I could not continue this lifestyle. This led me to my mental health journey and me re-examining hustle culture and its role in not only my self-esteem, but also my health. I began exploring the world of self-care and what that looked like for me. During this journey, I met my awesome friend Simone Collins, who's a mental health professional. Over the years, we had many conversations on this topic. Here's one of them.
Hey Simone, thank you so much for coming to this interview with me. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
I'm doing well myself. I am chilling. I'm relaxing. I got my plants bunny over here. Um, Today I wanted to talk about hustle culture and destigmatize relaxing and self-care and also mental health and what does that look like in our culture today. First off, what do you do? Where do you work in the mental health field?
Okay. Well, I do mental health therapy for individuals, do groups as well as families. Well, I used to do families, but now it's mostly individuals and groups. My title has many things depending on who you talk to. Social worker, mental health therapist, LMSW, which is licensed master social worker. It depends on who you're talking to, it depends on what area space that I'm in. But overall, I do mental health therapy.
Now, I want to start off with a statement and see how you feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Time equals money. How do you feel about that statement and its effect? To what extent it affects us as human beings?
Well, at the risk of sounding too political, I believe it's a statement that's rooted in capitalism. We live in a society where it's been ingrained in us for probably since most of us have been alive that your value is solely related to what profit you make, what services or what goods you can provide. And typically that can be very damaging to someone's overall health because we are people, we're not products.
If I'm not being productive, then I'm wasting time. And so simply existing is a waste of time. And that can do a lot of damaging effects to your value, your idea of your value as a human being, and can drive people to unhealthy work practices and unhealthy work-life balance, which brings me to hustle culture. In general, how do you feel about hustle culture?
Oh boy. Again, capitalism. I've seen a large influx on the glorification of hustle, that's a word, glorifying hustle culture, especially since the pandemic has started. I believe what they call LLC Twitter has a hand in that. Just, oh, you need to start a business, you need to work on investing. If you're not doing this, you're wasting all this free time. But what people fail to remember is not everybody has that drive or the mental capabilities to just work on developing a business. And also, not everybody wants to be a business owner. I think a lot of it also has to do with the media. I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure you've seen it too. A lot of us, we've grown up, we see, a lot of people in the entertainment industry, and when they talk about their stories, it's a lot of trauma, it's a lot of poverty, just plenty of hardships that they faced. And then we see who they are now. They're all rich and successful, and everybody likes them and wants to be them. And it doesn't always have to be that way. You can be successful without subjecting yourself to hardships. You don't have to always suffer for success. So suffering and success are not correlating all the time. If anything, trauma can sometimes hinder your ability to be successful. So I truly believe that the term hustle needs to be redefined. There's a difference between working hard for something that you want and being passionate about the work that you put in, and just practically killing yourself, for lack of a better term.
So how do you find that work-life balance? How do you still chase your dreams, chase your goals, but not kill yourself while doing it? How do you think people can do that?
You have to make sure you're creating a boundary and an environment for that. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. I cannot stress this enough. If you don't respect your time, no one else will. That means you have to be willing to put your foot down when you need time for yourself. Keep your days off consistent. If you came on to this job or this profession saying that Saturdays and Sundays are your days off, you need to stand firm with that, because there will be times when your boundaries are going to be pushed, when they're going to say, well, can you work at least till 2? Working till 2 can turn till 5. Working one Saturday a month can turn to every other month. You never know. So you need to stand firm. Also, having a set cutoff time for any work-related activities, even during the week. Usually, with my particular profession, I have certain times of the day that is the end of my day. I'm not doing any other things work-related. Once I leave the office, I leave the office, not just physically, but mentally. You have to have a cutoff time. That means no phone calls, not answering emails, not looking up anything. When you're off, you need to be off completely. Also, know your worth within your work environment. Communicate your expectations when you're looking for jobs, and not being afraid to say no. You do not have to be, for lack of a better term, a yes man. You do not have to bend over backwards. Just because you choose not to work every single day doesn't mean you're not going to get hired. It doesn't mean that hopefully it doesn't mean you're going to get fired, because you can definitely dispute that. You can still have boundaries and still do really well in your chosen profession.
Also, I would add, you need to keep things in perspective. If you drop dead from a heart attack, if you have to go to the hospital for something, they will replace you in a heartbeat. I also want to pivot now to self-care. So I know in my experience, didn't really have a lot of experience in self-care. And I used to define self-care as eating a whole thing of ice cream and doing a lot of other unhealthy things. What advice do you have for someone who wants to take care of themselves and want to explore the world of self-care?
Self-care is definitely a topic that I talk about very often. And one of the things I encourage clients to be mindful of is the activity you're doing self-care, or is it a distraction? If you're doing the activity to avoid something that you know is kind of triggering you or something that you find very upsetting, then it's not self-care. It's a distraction. Self-care inherently is more than just, what people think of as like the bubble baths and the candles and things like that. That doesn't mean that can't be self-care, but that's one type. Self-care, the umbrella definition is doing things or engaging in thought patterns that are beneficial to maintaining your physical and mental health. So that could be anything from establishing boundaries. Obviously, I talk about boundaries a lot, but they are very important. Another thing is maybe keeping up a healthy sleep schedule. Another thing is maintaining a healthy eating habits, maybe getting into exercises, making sure you go outside at least once a day, maybe for an hour, taking walks, um, processing past traumas, practicing emotional vulnerability. So the range of what is deemed self-care, it's very extensive. It's just about what the intent is behind the action itself. Also, your self-care should not be hurting anyone.
What would you say to someone who feels guilty or ashamed when they're scrolling on social media and they see their peers and they're successful, they look amazing, and they're astronauts and billionaires, and you're just sitting there taking care of yourself, doing that self-care? How do you avoid that guilt or that shame or that pressure to get up and start working?
Hmm. Well, oftentimes I encourage clients not to compare themselves to other people, because oftentimes the very thing you're comparing yourself regarding that person may not even be something you want to do. I mean, do you want to be an astronaut?
Oh, are you asking me? Oh no, I don't want
No, no,
to.
no, no.
I'm afraid of
Just-
heights. And I saw Apollo 13, way too young. So no, I did actually want to be an astronaut, but I think what did it for me was that movie and going over the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. It
Mhm.
humbled me. I'm afraid of heights. I can't go up there. That's
Well, at
not
least
for me.
you did
Like
a
it was-
lot of what I ask clients to do, which is practice self-awareness when you are trying to compare yourself to other people. Ask yourself, do I really want these things? Is this something, do I really want to live my life the same way that they do? And if so, am I willing to put forth the effort to do it? Another thing is social media is a very, very terrible thing to look at when you're not feeling your best, because you're only seeing one portion of that person's entire life. Everybody shows the best parts on social media. Of course, it looks like they're living the best life. You're only seeing snapshots of their entire life. You're not seeing the kind of struggles or things that they had to get through to get to this point. So, yes, it may seem glamorous and great and something you may want. Another thing is reminding yourself that self-care, if done correctly, is not being lazy. It's not something you should feel guilty about. It is actually what I consider to be maintenance. It's no different than brushing your teeth, doing your hair, taking baths regularly or showers. Think of yourself as a car. You get oil changes without a second thought. If something's up with your car, if you have the means to do so, you're going to take it to a mechanic. You go and get your emissions done. You get new tires. You get new windshield wipers. You fill it up with gas, because that is what is needed to make your car run smoothly. Same thing as a person. You need that recharge time. You need that time to relax. You need that time to de-stress from everything you got going on, so that when it's time to get back to work, you're at your best. If you're constantly just going, 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 not taking breaks, not taking care of yourself, you are eventually going to do what we call burning out. Burning out is something where you may become more resentful to your job. You may have poor physical health, like poor eating habits, poor sleep schedule. You may be adapting some aches and pains, and your work progress and your work ethic insignificantly decreases. So don't think of it as you not doing something you're supposed to do or that it's you being lazy. What you're doing is something that is overall essential to your success.
Do you have any advice for people experiencing burnout and how to get out of that hole?
Mhm. Well, it's about understanding what may be causing you to burn out. Self-disclosure, I have burnt out before. And it took me realizing that the particular environment that I was in wasn't healthy for me. So I decided to think about what would be a healthy work environment for me. What would be an environment that I feel like I could do my job, still have a pretty great work life balance, and not feel guilty when I took time off. Thankfully, I was able to find that. I am feeling a lot better. So, the first thing I would say is trying to figure out what may be causing you to burn out. The second thing is asking yourself, what do you need to feel better when you're in a work environment or whatever environment maybe you have originally caused you to burn out. The second thing is reminding yourself that you deserve to be happy in your work environment. You deserve to be happy in your family life. You deserve to be happy in your relationships. You deserve to be happy overall. And sometimes happiness means being okay walking away from stuff, saying no to things, putting aside things that no longer benefit you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so is there anything else you wanted to cover?
I would just say there is nothing wrong with seeking mental health services. If you feel that therapy is something that is for you or something you want to try, I encourage you not to feel ashamed about it. Don't feel like you are a failure or that something's wrong with you. Plenty of people through all walks of life access mental health services, and it can be very beneficial. Also, do not self diagnose. It's okay if you want to do a little research here and there, but self diagnosis for anybody is not healthy. And above all else, practice self care, whatever it means to you. One of the reoccurring myths that many people have regarding mental health, counseling, therapy services is that it's expensive and it's unattainable. That is not true. For one, there are a lot of clinicians who work on what is called a sliding scale fee. And what that means is they will discuss with you what your income looks like and determine what is a price that you both are comfortable with when it comes to paying for services. Many clinicians, including myself, also take Medicaid. When you are receiving therapeutic services with Medicaid, you are not paying for the service. I think the only thing you may pay for is if you do a copay for medication management, but the seeing the psychiatrist is usually going to be included. Another thing is if you don't have insurance or if you just have insurance that doesn't cover mental health services, there are also pro bono services. A lot of clinicians work part-time doing pro bono services where they provide services free of charge. All you have to do is look up pro bono services in your city or state. They usually have phone numbers or websites that you can access. Another thing is just checking with your insurance company about different agencies or individual therapists that take your insurance. I guarantee you there's going to be some clinician out there that will take your insurance no matter what it is. You may have to do a little bit of digging occasionally, but they do exist. If you're a college student, most colleges and universities have counseling centers, so that's already included in your tuition, which is probably high enough. If you are unfortunately homeless, some homeless shelters have on staff clinicians that will see you for therapy. They also do case management. So if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for housing, they can sometimes help you with that. Community mental health centers, which I used to work at one, they usually offer low cost or sometimes free services depending on what your situation is. They also kind of sometimes have psychiatrists or nurse practitioners who do medication management on staff as well. Or let's say you happen to sit down with a clinician, you do the initial interview for services, and they tell you what their fee is, and it's way outside of your budget. don't be afraid to ask them, well, this is a little high for me. Do you know of any other agencies or clinicians that may be able to work with my income or the amount of money that I can pay? At the end of the day, good clinicians are going to want you to get the services you need, even if it's not with them. So they're going to try to point you in the right direction. You also, if you are working, see if your job has what is called the Employee Assistance Program. Sometimes those programs do cover counseling services. You may also want to look into community support groups. Now, I will precursor to say not all the times are those groups run by licensed professionals, but at least gives you a space where you can kind of get some kind of support or help. And they may also be able to point you in the right direction of low cost or free services as well. So I never want anybody to feel like mental health services are outside of their reach just because they may not make a certain amount of money.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.